If you are an estate agent, letting agent, or someone who is interested in the property market, then this, the UK Property Market Stats Show, is for you. My name is Chris Watkin, and each week I'm joined by a special guest. This week it is Ben Madden. We'll come to Ben in a second. So what's the UK Stats Show all about? Well, a lot of people are interested in the property market and want to know what's happening. And there's an awful lot of indexes out there that tell you what's happening in the property market, like the Land Registry. But they're looking at the sales that took place 8 or 9 months ago. There are other indexes like the Halifax and Nationwide. They're looking at sales that took place 2 or 3 weeks ago, 2 or 3 months ago even. This is looking at last week. We're looking at what's happening to house prices. We are looking at what's happening to listings, price reductions, sales, fall throughs, and everything else that's involved in the property market. So you can, if you're interested in, know where the property market is going. This week it is week 42, which is Monday the 14th of October, all the way through and including Sunday the 20th of October. As I said, it's week 42, so we'll be analysing this week in standalone compared to the other week 42s and other year-to-date stats as well. This week, I'm joined by Ben Madden, who is no stranger to the show. He's been on a number of times, and he is an agent from West London. He knows his onions, and he's very, very well thought of in the industry. Thank you for joining me today, Ben.
Thank you for having me. Favorite 30 seconds.
Bless you. Look, so anyway, you do this show, is that one?
Love it. Love it.
Good stuff. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who've not watched the show before, it's roughly split into two. The first half is talking about the UK property market, where we're doing all those stats that we just mentioned. And then the second half is we focus on a town or a city, and we analyse how those estate agents are performing in that town. This week, it is on the city of Oxford. We're revisiting. It's been about a year since we've been to Oxford, so we're revisiting it and seeing what's happening in the Oxford property market. Now, of course, if you're not an Oxford estate agent, you might not want to watch that part of the show. However, I'd strongly recommend you did, because we're going to be using a bit of kit that shows which estate agents are the best and which ones are not by using various different metrics. So therefore, if you're an estate agent and you're having trouble with overvaluing or agents with cheap fees, and you are a better estate agent, then this bit of kit can prove that you are a better estate agent. So have a look at it, not necessarily for the actual Oxford details, but to have a look at the kit itself, because if you are the agent and you're as good as you think you are, then this bit of kit is groundbreaking stuff. And again, it's very easy for me to say that, but trust me, it is. Okay, Ben, shall we go and have a look at those stellar-roonies in the UK property market?
Let's do it.
Hey, here we go. Okay, so as always, ladies and gentlemen, we start off with listings, and I'll just spend a minute or so looking at these, and then we'll ask Ben for his input. Ben likes to fly by the seat of his pants, and he hasn't seen these stats. So just like you guys have not seen these stats, that's just the way he likes to roll. So the white line on the graph here shows the weekly number of listings. As you can see here, that number is dropping. But as is expected, looking at the other years of 2017, 18, 19, and 2023, we are now on the run down to Christmas. That's what's happening in the property market. But again, you can see here that the listing numbers are reasonably well. I would say they're very good. We're on 32,520 for the week. Year to date, we are on 1,479,000. And we'll just pull that up a second. That is 8.2% higher than 2023 and 7.5% higher than the averages of more, if there is such a thing, normal years of 17, 18, and 19. And the average asking price of a property coming onto the market is 427,444. Ben, over to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think as we're in the, I guess, I don't like to talk about the end of the year, especially before the end of the year. So what I mean by that is 23rd of October, and advent calendars are out in Tesco's and Sainsbury's, and let's talk about Christmas. Let's talk about our plans for 2025. Well, my general view is that your plan for 2025 should have been set a couple of years ago anyway. And so if you're waiting to do it now, as you approach November, you're a little bit late, but also you're wishing away your year. There's so much time left for business to be done, in my opinion. And I think we're 7 days out from this budget that everyone's, you can't get away from it. It's everywhere you look. So we've had one of those years, I think, as an industry. Last year was really challenging, but the challenge last year presented itself in the final quarter of the year. Trustonomics, we knew we were coming into 2023. It was going to be a battle. Everyone there, they put their armor on, got their dukes up. It's going to be a fight. We're going to have to work our ass off. We're going to have a canvas that like our lives depended on. We're going to have to prospect. We have to do all the great things that help us do business. Then I think we came into 2024 maybe a little underprepared. Maybe not quite the right choice of term. But what we've ended up having this year is
our backs weren't up against the wall compared to going.
They weren't, and so we weren't backed into a corner, and so it wasn't our life depended on it. But maybe we were a little bit complacent. But what we've experienced this year, actually, pretty damn tough. So the Euros, and I know, how does the Euros impact the housing market? Well, a huge number of people in this country are going to spend a 2-week period watching football instead of finding their home or putting their home on the market. You got the Olympics, okay, not a major one, not as interesting. General election, that's a biggie. And now we're into this build-up around the budget and are we slowing down? What are we doing? Is this going to be an issue? Should I buy? Should I sell right now? There's lots of uncertainty and lots of distractions this year. And I think given all those distractions and uncertainty, it's been a fantastic year for listings. Activity levels seem to be really buoyant. And actually, I am really excited about the last 2 months of the year because I think the budget, there's going to be some unpleasantness, if you like, but it's not going to be to the level of the scaremongering that's been going on. So I think we're going to have a little bounce. I think you're going to see buyers say, well, we held off. Let's see what we can find. Could we do a deal at what's, perceived as a quieter time of year? I think agents should be looking forward to November and December this year. That's my key takeaway, that the rundown to the end of the year, if you look at this graph we're looking at right now, instruction levels drop. There's some serious business to be done in the last 2 months of 2024. I'm certain of that.
I mean, certainly what you do in Q4 2024 is how you earn in Q1 2025. And, I was at Twickenham yesterday in a room full of over 100 estate agents. And a lot of people are slightly concerned about their cash flow in Q1 2025. However, that's always been the case, hasn't it? Because, the system gets rinsed of exchanges and not much is coming in November and December at the top end. So, I would actually say in terms of those distractions, you can see here on the graph here that we've got 3 distinct drops on listings and 1 distinct drop on listings here. And again, those 4 drops are identical on sales, both gross and also net. Those drops are all on the 2 bank holidays, Easter, and then the summer bank holiday here. Okay, so those are the effects. If you are going, because I do this, as you know, obviously each week, I'm of the opinion that the Euros and the general election had no effect whatsoever on the property market whatsoever. And I think normally general elections, if we're not sure, that tends to affect it, but I think everyone knew what the result was going to be. And again, just coming back to, and again, this will be coming out before the budget for next week. I strongly agree with you that I think that they're doing what your mum used to do, is that they used to give you the doom and gloom message, and then when it comes back and it's just doom and not gloom, then you think, there you go. It's just classic marketing, politics and classic marketing. And if you hear the leaks that are coming out, they say, oh, we're going to get you, but we're not going to get them bits, and we'll be okay. So I don't know. We'll see. But let's move on. Let's move on to price reductions. So again, let's just remind ourselves, ladies and gentlemen, about the stock levels that we're seeing in the UK. So at this moment in time, we have 724,000 properties available for sale. All the yellow lines, so we always do the stock levels at the end of every month. So that's the end of September. And I know we're on late October, but you can see fundamentally, if you look at that graph, things don't materially change overnight between months and months. Let's just remind ourselves those sort of levels were at 1.2 million back in 2008 when we had oversupply. So I'm not too concerned about the stock levels there. But what percentage? And I know this is a new graph that we do every month. It's very easy to say, right, the number of reductions, which, as I said, is 22,629, and the average price of a reduction is 389,900. And I think this is a new graph. I think this was inspired by one of our chats, Ben.
Yeah, I think
Where we actually said, right, let's not look at the standalone. What percentage of the properties that we have for sale are being reduced? And at the moment, 14%, or nearly 1 in 6, or just between one in 6, 1 in 7. Is that enough?
Well, if you're actually asking me based on, I guess, data, we're going to talk about in more detail later on. If roughly half the properties are selling,
yep,
and only 1 in 6 are reducing their price, there's a massive disparity there. There's a real issue that needs to be addressed. I say that with empathy because I appreciate, as an agent on the ground, how difficult it can be to deal with a consumer that's been told by several other agents that their property price should be X, and it's X minus 10% or something like that. So I understand how difficult it is, but I know in our own business, the difficult conversations are what fuel the success. And so if you want to be selling more than 50%, you need to be reducing more than 1 in 6.
Indeed. Well, in London, where you are, it's 36%.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I do love a good London stat, and it completely distorts my picture of the industry and the world, because in London it's wild the amount of properties that come to market that don't sell, because I was told recently that a third of all agents are based in London in this country, and so this crazy volume of competition leads to a bit of feeding from the gutter and people saying whatever they need to win the business. And as a homeowner in London, which I am, the service levels you can expect are not wonderful, I'm afraid. And that's not all agents, but there's a reason the reputation precedes us. And when we're doing some of the things we do, they're in our own interest rather than the interest of the consumer. This is where we land.
Great insight there, mate. Okay, let's move on to gross sales. So the white line is 2024, and the other years, again, I think the most recent year that's important is the pink line at 2023. So we're on gross sales this week, 26,075. And, looking at this graph, and ladies and gentlemen, what I would just say is that all the graphs that we're showing now are available to download. If you're listening to this on podcast, there will be a link in the write-up. And if you're watching this on YouTube, if you scroll down in the description, there's a link where you can download all these graphs. And I've got no issue at all with you using these on valuations. All I do ask is that you don't use them on social media, because my daytime job is I'm a property data journalist. I write articles for local property markets. And I give these graphs grant free or as part of the package to my fee-paying clients. So I ask you don't publish these on social media, but I'm happy for you to use them out on the valuations to prove that you know what you're talking about when you're talking to your vendors on the val. I mean, looking at that white line, to actually turn around and say that, we are 25% nearest damage, because I think 2023, let's just pull up the 2023 figure. 2023 was 23,300. And let me start that one again. In 2023, 21,200 properties sold. And this year, 26,000. Nearest damn it, 25% more gross sales this week compared to the same year in 2023. And if we're looking at year to date, we're 14.5% ahead year to date on 2023, and we're 7.9% ahead of the normal years of 17, 18, and 19. Gotta admit, mate, that's not bad, is it?
It's not bad, no. I mean, I know earlier on you said that the distractions that I mentioned didn't think it had an impact on the housing market, but I do wonder if there were less distractions, would we have seen a bit more? I think it's numbers-wise, raw numbers, It's very, very positive. For those that survived last year, which was clearly based just on transactions, would have been challenging for a lot of people, a lot of agencies. This year, while still challenging, probably feels like almost a welcome relief. And I know you mentioned about people worrying about cash flow for Q1 next year. Um, I think every business has that. I think it's important to remind people that we're all in this together, and that
Hmm.
the seasonal norms mean that, yeah, quarter one isn't a lot of fun for any of us any year ever.
Isn't it interesting, though, that again, if you look at that white line compared to the pink line of 2023, if we're stuffing our sales pipelines in these last few weeks, then people's sales pipelines should be better in Q1 because we are 25% nearest damn it ahead of where we were last year. So Q1 might not be as bad. And again, that's the beauty of data like this, is that we're all very, we're all a bit too close to the coalface. Sometimes just taking a step back and just look and say, actually, as an industry, there's more properties in sales pipelines. Let's just remind ourselves, ladies and gentlemen, of the number of properties that are in agents' pipelines, that we have over 500,000 properties in sales pipelines. Now, these numbers are, and we always, again, just like the stock levels, we always take this data from the end of the month. So these are the end of September. To have 502 or 503,000 properties in sales pipelines. And I know some of you are going to say, well, it takes 19 weeks to get a sale through. It was taking 19 weeks in 17, 18, and 19. But things haven't changed that much. I think we tend to have our memories are not particularly good. Things haven't changed that much. So to have an additional 25% in our pipeline, not bad at all, is it?
Not at all. I mean, so to use our business as an example, 2 weeks ago we hit a record for the size of our pipeline in the entire time we've had our business. And some of that was to do with the previous couple of months, the exchanges were down, but also we'd really filled it with new business. August and September this year were fantastic, and so budget coming along clearly didn't stop a huge section of the market from transacting. So yeah, I don't from our business perspective, quarter one is going to be touch wood, considerably more positive than your average Q1 actually.
Indeed. Right, let's just look at some more stats on the residential sales. This is a graph which is a newish graph, and this is the resi sell-through rate. So this is what percentage of your stock are you turning over, i.e. sale agreeing per month. And again, it will drop off as we go into the later months, but we're running at 15%. So we're shifting 15, 16% of our stock at the moment. And again, this surprised a lot of people that even in the crazy years of 21, that we were only shifting around 30, 32% of our stock levels. I find it, our perception is everything was selling. It wasn't. And again, I think sometimes it's the difference between emotion and logic, and the fact that when we look back, we deal with feelings, not with actual facts. The average price of a property selling is 371. Now, this is so that we put that onto a graph here. And the red line shows the average asking price of the listing in that week, and the orange line shows the average asking price of a property going sale agreed. Now, some of you will say, well, you don't know what the property sold for. However, there is data from Hamptons who've gone back nearly 20 years now, and they analyze average asking prices versus what the property actually sells for. And apart from 2021 and early 22, where this flipped to a positive, the average difference between an average asking price and a sale agreed price is always between 1% and 2%. So it stays really in that tight band. So therefore, tracking average asking prices at sale agreed is a good way to see what they actually sell for. They just sell for a couple of percent less. It's the gap that's important. Well, now, again, in this show here, this is September, and then this was last September, and we did predict this. This is you lot in London, Ben, especially in the SW and W postcodes. Okay, I'm not joking you. I went and looked at the stats, and this uplift here is basically in the UK during the summer months. It's just normal. It's a normal market, but everyone in London goes away. But what happens is for 2 magic weeks when they come back at then everyone dumps. And this is that uplift here is probably an extra 4 or 5 thousand homes coming on the market in London. And look at the difference it makes to the UK national figures. Remembering that we're putting on over 30,000 houses every single week. So 2 or 3 extra thousand properties each week in Southwest and West London makes a huge difference to the gap. So let's just ignore that because they're just strange London people, boys and girls outside them 25.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
Tell you what, you're a different breed. It's the gap between that we need to measure, and again, we're around that mid-teens mark, which is I'm very happy about that. But it's just interesting to keep an eye on that. And again, to answer some people's questions, why is there a gap? Because lower price properties have a greater chance or a greater propensity to sell, so that's going to drag the average down. Okay, that's just week 42 in isolation. Again, just those same stats, but that's 2 years. That's the last 5.5 years. As I said, the gap this week, 15.2. Anything on this before we go and look at fall throughs?
No, but that's a really interesting piece of data that you say Hampton's produced over the last 20 years. That generally speaking, it's within between 1 and 2% of asking price. That's really interesting.
It just shows that you have to have a good. We all know this. But to have an asking price that's realistic, we all know that as agents, don't we?
Yeah.
But to actually hear some stats, it's
powerful.
Very powerful. Okay, let's move on to fall throughs. So, ladies and gentlemen, when a property goes into us, for those that are not estate agents, when a property goes up the contract, it goes into the estate agent sales pipeline. And as I said, we've already looked at that in the graph of the number of properties in the pipeline. The question is how many fall throughs are there? So the first thing that we always do is we look at the actual numbers, and that limey green one is still carrying on upwards. And this week it is 6,616. Okay, I must admit, probably I've just cropped the graph there a bit more, but as I said, it's around 6,600. So I'll get that sorted out for next week. The sales fall through rate, and again, this is a traditional graph. We're going to come on to the newer one, which I think is a better one. This looks at gross sales in the week and then the fall throughs from the sales pipeline and as a percentage. So if you've got 10 sale agreeds and 3 properties from your pipeline fall through, 3 expressed as a percentage of 10 is 30%. That's where your numbers come from. But and again, that's not bad. But this is I think a more important graph is what percentage of your sales pipeline is falling through, not what percentage of fall throughs as a percentage of your gross sales, because you're only just looking very isolated in 1 week, and the fall through's got nothing to do with the sales. Well, it's a good graph to go for. I think this one here, and at the moment, fall throughs we're falling through about 5% of our pipeline a month, and that's not bad, is it? I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not good. It's not bad.
It's not bad. So the running average is about 25%.
24.7, yes.
Okay.
And so 24 in the whole scheme of things, 24.7% of properties will fall through.
And so so that fits in line with the fact that it's roughly 5 months to get from under offer to exchange, because you're losing about 5% of it a month. Yeah. That is just, there's some crazy stats in this industry. This is just wild that we take 5 months to get something from under offer to exchange. And because of that, you lose 5% of your business every month. Just the fact that we're not doing more to get this addressed is astonishing.
Well, interestingly, I was at an ICG event yesterday, and we had some panelists, and we kind of there was some big names on that panel. We came to the conclusion that you could either moan about it, or there are certain things as agents that you can do to expedite this. And the first thing that we came up with is getting solicitors involved on listing. And we actually had a solicitor there, getting the TA6 forms filled in. And material information, it's there, but everyone seems to be ignoring it because no one seems to be kicking agents about it. Again, I think our trading standards needs to start kicking some backsides there. And I think everyone will come into line. But if we can get material information up front, we can get solicitors instructed and get searches underway. If we can then, once we've then done that, get reservation agreements. Reservation agreements take sale fall throughs from an average, as I said, of 24 into single digits. If we can get the solicitors on board on day one of the listing, because it's taking around 70, 80 days to find a buyer, all of a sudden our sales are taking 8 weeks, 10 weeks, and not 19 weeks.
So yeah, what you described is exactly how our business currently operates. So we offer four different sales services, depending on how the consumer wants to commit, um, how motivated they are, I guess. But one of them involves the conveyancing being begun at point of instruction. And so I don't mean getting sale ready. I mean the service we use will instruct a conveyancer on both sides before the property's even been sold, which is, I think, could be really fantastic for the world of agency. And I would love to talk about the name of the company, but I've signed an NDA, which means I can't. That said, if anyone's really interested in this, and we've been using it now for a few months, in essence, what it means is at point of going live and in being instructed and going to marketing, let's say it takes you 4 weeks to sell the property. By the time you're under offer, you could be in a position where the property is ready to exchange within a matter of weeks. So we use that. We use reservation agreements via Gazelle, which I think is a brilliant product. Our abortive rate is something like 6% because I think of that product. So these things all exist. They're there now. Can be done, can be used. I say I can't say the name of the service we use for the pre-conveyancing, but if anyone's interested, they can contact me. I can contact the company we use and ask them to make contact with you directly because I think it's a game changer for this industry. And driving down their stat is that they can drive down the conveyancing process by about 85%.
Here you go, ladies and gentlemen. And again, at the ICG, this firm was mentioned, and I had some questions and I was impressed. So, well, what if I want to use my own system? That's fine. The work's been done. You just pass it over.
Mm-hmm.
Again, the vendor is paying for that, and it's two separate solicitors, so there's no conflict of interest.
Mm-hmm.
And the beauty is that if you've got serious buyers, you're going to get your money through quicker. They're happy. Everyone's happy. The problem, I believe, and this is what was said at the conference yesterday. A lot of estate agents think vendors don't want to pay the money. It's not the agents, it's not the homeowners that don't want to pay the money. It's the mindset of the estate agents and the listers that they don't want anything to get in the way of getting the listing. So therefore, if they say, well, we'll come with us, but you've got to spend an extra grand, then they're going to lose the listing. But again, it comes down to mindset, it becomes the way you process it, it's the way you put it across. And if you're a good estate agent who is into sales psychology and knowing how people make decisions, you can turn this into an advantage, not as a thing to get in the way of getting the listings. And that's why, if you don't mind me saying, Ben, when there are literally 9 or 10 estate agency trainers to cover 14,500 independent estate agents, it's no wonder our average fees. And again, as I said, I published this yesterday. And these are stats that are from Ian Preston, who I know you know very well, and I know very well. He's a good friend of ours. But in 2015, the average negotiator salary was £22,000. And again, remember, some people say, well, I was being paid a lot less in 2015. Remember, this is London. So London has affected these prices. So we are looking at the UK average. And as Ben said, a third of agents do come from London. So that is going to drag this up. The average neg salary was 22,000, excluding bonus. And the minimum wage was 14,000, which is a 58% difference. So there was a 58% premium of being an estate agent over the minimum wage. Today, the minimum wage is 23,800 and the average neg salary is 26,300, which is an 11% difference. Now, I know there's commission on top, but I'm sorry, guys, estate agency is a stressful job, isn't it? You're being shouted at, you're dealing with someone's, moving from one chapter of their life. No wonder we're not attracting people. Who would want to be an estate agent where you can stack shelves and have no hassle at Tesco's, will be shouted at and expect to work 5 days a week and alternate Saturdays?
Well, yeah, that's the thing for me. It's not necessarily the stress, although I can see why it would turn people off being shouted at for doing your job. But there are so many roles that would attract a young salesperson nowadays that maybe didn't exist 20 years ago. And so those roles don't involve working until 8 or 9 o'clock at night. They don't involve working Saturdays. They don't involve dealing with people that are moving through the most stressful decision they'll have to make in their lives. They are there's less of a requirement, less pressure on you. So I genuinely believe that if you want to have a great business, it's the individuals and the attitudes in that business. So just pay them more. And I know it sounds like, oh, it's easy for you to say that, X, Y, Z. Just pay them more. I guarantee you, the more you pay, the better you get, the more money you make if you want to make it about money. But actually, the more business you do, the more people you service. Um, I said it on something else I was on with you recently. Someone far more intelligent than me, simple rule. Their rule is ensure they have fun, pay them above the odds. That's it. People never leave. If they're having fun and they're getting paid well, they'll be with you forever. And that continuity builds such great business. Anyway, that's my rambling.
And good rambling too. Very good rambling. It's interesting that I was talking to some agents is that they would rather have 2 high paid negs than 3 average paid negs, because
I'd take 2 over 4.
They'll actually get more out of the 2.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Jim Collins, good to great, right people on the bus, but then make sure you got the right numbers. There's a really brilliant example. Let me just give it to you in 30 seconds. It's about mining, I think it is, in the Midwest America. And what they want to do is find the hardest working people. So for this particular business, so they go where the miners are, because they are a hard working community. And instead of paying 10 people, they pay 6 people like they're 8. And so they've got 6 on staff. It costs them the equivalent of 8, but they're doing double the work of 10. And then just like that, of course, that's it. And it's not necessarily about hard work. Sometimes it's about skill, it's experience, whatever it might be. But pay above the odds, get the best talent. Sports get it. You want the best people, you've got to pay the most money.
I tell you what, I was on Indeed this morning. I just wanted to look, and I come from Grantham in Lincolnshire, and I went to look at negotiators, and there was these agents publishing adverts, and the basic salary was the minimum wage, and it made and a bit of commission, but with respect, 5% commission if you're lucky. No, you get a pension. Yeah, of course you get a pension. That's the bloody law. Anyway, let's move on to net sales. So net sales, white line is this year. And again, look at the gap we've got between the pink line of 2023. Just to give you an idea in terms of net sales, 19,459 last week compared to 15,447. Year to date, we are 5.5% ahead of the net sales compared to the average of 17, 18 and 19, and 17.2% ahead of the 2023 figure. As I said, those are the standalone weeks of week 42. Again, remember we said that there was the drops down in the 2 bank holidays and the Easter and the summer bank holiday. Those are all the dips. You can see them all there, clear as day. Not bad more, is it? I mean, when you consider, again, I just find this fascinating that we are a gnat's whisker away from 2021.
And based on that last graph, we're going to blitz past 2022 by the end of the year, because look what happens in the last quarter following Trussonomics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, if the issue is not the market, ladies and gentlemen, the issue is you're not getting a big enough slice. And it all comes down to, and again, this is what we had at the ICG, is this. It's all very easy to say charge a higher fee, but you can only charge a higher fee if you can afford to walk away. And therefore, what you need is more valuations and more listings so you can afford to walk away. So it all comes down to how do you get more valuations and listings? Through great marketing. Again, the marketing, I stood up and said, you're all rubbish at your marketing because all you do is listing. You've got to put your listings in, but all you're doing is putting listings. You're just a glorified Rightmove. But interesting content. And also the magic, the true silver bullet. Join local Facebook groups and post as a person in local Facebook groups interesting information about the property market. Not your listings, not what you've sold, interesting information, because everyone's obsessed about the value, property values. Anything on net listings before we move on and go and look somewhere else?
No, only that I'm in complete agreement. The more you put in the top of that funnel, the easier your life becomes at the bottom of the funnel to walk away from the ones that you shouldn't be doing business with.
Indeed. Right. Gross sales as a percentage of listings this week and price changes as a percentage of listings. I know some of you like that figure. Okay, let's move on. This is a monthly graph. This shows the number of exchanges on the red line versus the number of withdrawals. So and then if you wanted to express that as a percentage, these are your percentage chances. So this is percentage of properties leaving estate agents' books that exchanged contracts, which means you get paid and the person moved, exchange completed, versus obviously the white area being withdrawn. So again, 53% of properties are you're being paid on, the other 47% you're not being paid on. Now, I know for a fact somebody said, well, some of those 47% will go to other agents. Yes, they will. But remember, 93% of residential sales are sold with the first agent. Only 6.9% of properties are sold with the second agent.
That is mind blowing. I know I've heard it before. You've said it before, but I guess it's mind blowing for me because our business was built on being the first choice second agent. So we a lot of the time fall into that 7% category. But that's amazing that based on what I see in London with pricing strategies of agents, they still that it doesn't impact the rest of the market so as negatively as I thought it would.
I mean, again, just some other stats is that the chances of a property selling with the chances of a property selling with the first agent are 59%. The chances of a property selling, this is sale agreed, not exchange.
Yeah,
this is exchange. The chances of a property selling with the second agent, 44%. But remember, 93% of sales that actually took place sell with the first agent. So therefore, what that's telling me is there isn't that many properties that swap agents and subsequently sell.
yeah.
So that's why you're on this show, and that's why people think the world of you, and that's why your stats are good and you've got a great pipeline, is because you are a great estate agent who actually follows through and does what you're supposed to. Whilst with most estate agents, they don't even get called out to the listing and say, or if they do, they just say, give me a call if you change your mind, and no one's going to do that. No one's going to ring you back because they're going to look silly and stupid because you were right and they were wrong, and no one likes that. And just shows that if you put your mind to it, you can have a great estate agency business. I'll get off my soapbox. This is a nice graph. These are a couple of new graphs, not new graphs, a couple of months old. This is showing the number of properties that you have in your sales pipeline versus the number of properties that you have available to sell. So the first one is, this is raw numbers, and that is proportion. So again, so therefore, the number of properties that are in estate agent's pipeline, around 40% of the properties they have, and 60% of their properties are for sale. It's the change in that we look at. Again, I think that was inspired by you, Ben. There's a reason.
I like that one. I like that. That's interesting.
This graph gets changed every month. It shows you the average pound per square foot. We kind of take the red line with a slight pinch of salt, ladies and gentlemen, because again, you lot that was September. So that's you lot in London, because we're going to do this once a month. So in September, everyone dumped their houses on the market. Remember, the number went up and the pound per square foot went up. So that's you lot. And if you look at the different Septembers, there's one, and not so much. Well, yeah, not so much there in 20, but there's definitely one in 23. There we go. Uplift. That'll come back down next week. It's this orange line that we are really focused on, and that figure there is, as you can see here, is around that 341 mark. In a nutshell, I'll just pull up the stats. Hold on a second, mate. 2 seconds. I've got it here. Here we go. Okay, so we finished it on £340 per square foot. The month before, in August, it was 338. The month before that was 341. Ladies and gentlemen, the percentage movement in that orange line will predict the land registry in 5 or 6 months' time with a 92% accuracy rate using the Pearson correlation coefficient. Can I say that? That's basically showing you that if one goes up, does the other one go up, and does it follow in line by a certain percentage? So follow that line. So, house prices are pretty static at the moment. So therefore, the land registry will show late spring up and down of 1 or 2%. Okay. Okay. Anything else you want to say before we go to Oxford?
No, let's go to Oxford. I'm excited.
Okay, here we go. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who have not watched this show before, we're using a platform called Insight. Insight is from a firm called 20EA. They have a number of different platforms, and this one is called Insight. Okay. Insight is a piece of kit that any estate agent can purchase. There is actually a free version as well. It has limited information, but it's not bad at all. But the one that you pay the shekels for, you will get this level of information on your local town and a number of postcodes. And then there's other versions where you can go for regions or national. Still the same data, okay? I'm not being paid by 20EA to mention this Insights platform. However, I'm a massive fan of it. But as I said, I'm not being paid in any way, shape, or form. They just give me this platform free of charge, and in return, that's where this national data comes from that you get from the show. And also enables us to focus on a town or a city. As I said, this week's on Oxford. We are returning to Oxford. We went to it last year, so we thought we'd come back, have another look, and just see if things had changed in any way. There's lots and lots of great data in here, so let's dive in and have a look. And as always, Ben, I know you've been here a number of times. What the way we'll do this is you just jump in at any time if you see something that you like the look of. So the first thing that we're going to do is that we're going to look, and as I said, mainly residential sales. There's going to be a little bit of lettings, not so much data on the lettings. So for the purposes of this is Greater Oxford, and the Greater Oxford area is, and we'll just pull this up, OX1 through to 4, OX33 and OX44. So we've got the main city and we have the villages that are considered focus villages on the city itself. Have you ever been to Oxford, mate?
I have, yeah. Yeah, very nice area of the world.
Indeed, indeed. So this is Rightmove Plus on steroids, in my humble opinion. Is amazing data. And let's go and dive in. So the first thing that we're looking at is that we are looking at between the 1st of January 2019 all the way through to the 22nd of October 2024. We are looking at the new instructions. You can see this graph here, that this is the level of new instructions. And again, we won't look at October just yet because we have to have complete months. But in September 2024, you can see here, there were 322 properties came onto the market in Oxford, and the year before that, 233. Again, it wasn't high as 2020, where there was 400. So that is quite, what's that screaming at me is that 2020 figure there. That's really high. There was an uplift in listings, but nowhere near the extent of what we saw in that gap between 2020 and 2019. So that's the first thing that I've noticed, that during lockdown, or the lockdown year of 2020, listings went through the roof in Oxford. Let's go and have a look and see how all the different ages are performing. And first off, we start off with chancellors. We can see here that in 2019, that their market share for new listings was hovering around the 16-17% mark, and seems to be drifting down slightly to around that 15 or 16% area. Their average price, as I said, is 447, whilst so 603 is the average. So it appears that chancellors, in terms of their market focus, tends to be at the lower to middle market. Would you agree on that, Ben?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go look at Brecons. They seem to be more middle of the road at 597. And again, their market share since 2021 seems to be slightly drifting from around the 12 or 13% mark to around the 8 or 9% mark. Let's go and look at Scott Fraser's. Again, I know we've got a bit of spike there in April 2020, but again, I would say that in 21 and 22, their average was around the 10% mark, and probably now their average is around 8 or 9%. Isn't it interesting, Ben, that the top 3 estate agents very slowly seem to be slipping market share. Nothing massive, nothing, but this is the beauty of this sort of data, is that I think we're all very guilty of looking at what we did last year and not what we did 5 years ago. Do you not agree?
Yeah, well, yeah, I do. And whilst, yeah, it's marginal reductions as a percentage in real numbers for them, that's significant actually. Bearing in mind the size of their market share, yeah, I'd be really interested to see who's making the gains and taking stock off them.
So this is Andrews. Um, Seems to be pretty stable. We've got some spikes there. Is that a? So again, no, there's nothing there that's screaming. Let's look at Connells. I would expect Connells to have a big spike in the Decembers because they're part of the Connell sequence group. That's how we get. And there you go. Have we got some spikes there? Okay. So that's interesting that their spikes, their Christmas. Oh, there's a Christmas spike. Is that a Christmas spike? Yeah, Christmas spike. Okay, so that's the first thing that's telling me is that their market share in Connells is growing. And what is interesting is I looked at some data of the biggest 25 estate agency chains in the UK, and the vast majority. Okay, there's two that are vastly growing, and they're both self-employed models. So we'll put those on the side. The top 25 chains, pardon me, all of them are slipping slowly down in terms of their percentage market share. The one that stuck out was Connell Sequence, who are very much, they're big, aren't they? I mean, they've got 8% of the market in terms of size of market, but nationally, their market share has remained steady.
So sorry, out of the top 25, Chris, I mean, virtually all are losing market share. Connells are stable, and two are growing.
The two that are growing are self-employed models.
Interesting.
Okay, but the drops, because I did it between the 2018, 2019, and today, the drops are quite subtle. It's a couple of percent. It's a drift. It's not a drop. I mean, we all know purple bricks have dropped, but and that's been from around 4% to 1%. So if you put on a graph, it does look quite whoa. Okay, but all of them, there is a slight drift downwards, but you wouldn't, between last year and this year, you would go, oh well, but it's happening with all of them.
Yeah,
some worse than others.
Why do you think that is?
Again, it comes down to leadership and mindset, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I think it does. The world hasn't changed, so
okay, you could blame, social media and things. No, people don't change. Simple fact is this: estate agency is easy. Market yourself, get called out, put the house on at the right price at the right fee, get it sold, get paid. It is that easy. Is it hard? It is hard to do, but it is simple. Not easy, but it is simple.
I wonder if the point you highlighted earlier on about pay, does that impact the bigger businesses more than any other? Because they need the volume of people and they're not bringing in the best quality.
I mean, I posted that on LinkedIn, and again, everyone, if we are paying minimum wage for basically someone to sell their biggest asset, it is interesting, as I do my sofa chats, and I was talking to someone, and I think the splitting up of the neg and the valuer was one of the biggest reasons. And again, I know this took place in the 80s, but I'm just specifically talking, is the effect. It does take a while for it to come through. I think the splitting up of the neg and the valuer is a huge reason, one of the big reasons why fees have gone down and why we're only selling 1 in 2 houses. Now, of course, we've got the issues with regard to overvaluing, the portals, the CRMs. But I would, if I had to put my money, I would say one of the big reasons is the splitting up of that role. What is interesting is that those estate agency chains where the person is from start to finish, the one person values the house, puts the house on the market, does vendor management, takes the offer and negotiates all the way through. They're saleability rates, their exchange ratios are heads and shoulders, exchanges as a percentage of listings are heads and shoulders above those that split the neg and the value or roll up. Do put in the notes if you disagree with me, but I think what will get us back on track in a state agency is if you bring the neg and the valuer together. What's your thoughts on that?
We've depending on the size of the business. So over the years, I had a big businesses I exited 3 years ago this month, funnily enough. Fine & Country is a small operation. Our licensed territory, there's only there's a dozen of us. And so in that model, we have self-employed agents, that's a popular term, so I'll jump on that bandwagon. But we've got some guys that work around the periphery of the core area. And so they'll be responsible for absolutely everything within their business. They'll have things like marketing support, service support, post-sales, progression support, stuff like that. But in terms of client management, from valuation to placing that property under offer, they're responsible for all of it. But then in our core team, which is sort of the original team, we've got a more traditional setup where the managing director of the business is also the core lister. He will still do vendor care and viewings and appointments and all the usual bits and pieces. But we've also got a team that handle the vast majority of that stuff. And so there's no one real person that's a sole point of contact within the business, but there's massive accountability around the team getting the result for the client. And so it's a small room, and in that sales morning meeting, if Daniel, my business partner, the managing director, if he's got the price wrong, he has to wear that, and he has to deal with that, and he has to address that.
You are so right. Accountability. I think there's too many glory boy, glory girl valuers that put the house on the market, throw the file at the neg, floss, and then go out. They'll never go anywhere near that property in terms of vendor management. Yeah, and therefore the neg that isn't trained in negotiating, isn't trained to get the price down, doesn't know what the valuer said. It's easy to write a number on, take responsibility and put the house on the market, and therefore manage it all the way through. I'm sorry, guys, if you disagree with me, that's just my opinion. There you go.
And so, Chris, I think it's the thing is, so I use the word accountability, which you picked up on, but it's having the right person in the room. So for a lot of businesses, not to pick on corporates, but there's less accountability for the individual in a corporate structure. They can hide from it. They can dress it up as KPIs, whatever they want. In a smaller business, in an independent business where it's an owner operated business, so traditional high street, or be it self-employed or whatever model you want to talk about, if we don't sell it, we're not eating. And that's what it comes down to. And so we want to do a great job for our client. Best way we can do that job is getting them sold and giving them that honest, robust feedback on where we need to be. And if you've got someone whose pay is directly attributed to the success of your relationship with your client, shit's going to get done. And that, I think, is where businesses fall over. That, yeah, it's just too easy. There's so many of us. Somebody else will deal with it. It's not so much of an issue for me. And that's where things fall away, in my opinion.
So bang on. Right, let's carry on. So Chamberlain Evans, slight growth there from an average of around 2.5 to around nearly 4. So well done, Chamberlain Evans. Thomas Merrifield, slight drifting down, not discernible. Savills, again, they're posh end. We'll look at the upper quartile in a second.
1.5, not bad price point.
But again, we'll look at the upper quartile in a second. Let's look at Knight Frank. Isn't it interesting? There's lots of agents very tight on the numbers. That's interesting. Okay, Alan Harris, part of the Connell Sequence Group. Slight growth there. Well done, guys and girls. Okay, Amelia, is that how, I don't know how you pronounce that, but well, they're growing. Look at that. They go from around 1 or 2% to there's 4. I was having a great month there in October. Cherry Picked Residential, JCP, slight dropping, guys and girls. Wheatley Estates, Turner's, Carter Jonas, PB, Finders Keepers. I'd have expected them to be a bit more because, I mean, for lettings, they're huge, aren't they?
Yeah.
They sold for millions, didn't they, a few years ago? Let's get John D. Wood. It's going to be a bit spikier now because we're talking low numbers. We'll go down to we'll have a look. Martin & Co., Morgan Associates, Taylor's, Alistair, Red House. Okay, good. Let's just have a quick look at the upper quartile now. Okay, so it might even be the upper quintile. We'll see how we get on the stats. Okay, upper quartile kicks in at 750 in Oxford or Greater Oxford, and we can see here that Brecon and Brecon are the. Now, where were they? Where were they before?
They were second.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, I think you pointed this out before, how few brands are able to
Very few.
service the mass market and the upper.
Only ever seen two, where the number one volume agent is the number one. Now, this is interesting. Look, whenever so anything over 1 million, so there's not so many houses there. Okay.
Mm.
Right, so I'm just looking at the million, as I said, the £1 million mark, and Brecon. So it looks like Breccon's their magic area, their sweet spot is that 750. Okay, yeah, there you go. And then if we add in, so there's 1 million upwards. There's not so many houses. Knight Frank and Savills and Penny and St Clair seem to be battling it out there. Let's just have a quick look. Savills seem to be dropping off there. Not like them. Penny and St Clair. Okay, Brecon and Brecon. Okay, let's just add in that 750 mark. Okay. Okay, so Breccon's, that seems to be their sweet spot. The more, should we say, the more Waitrosy market, whilst your Savills and are more your Selfridges and as I'm sure where you shop all the time, Harrods Food Hall.
Obviously, yeah. Being a Londoner and all.
Fortnum and Mason. Okay, that's interesting. Let's move on and let's go and have a look at this. Now, this is one of my favorite graphs at all. This is one of my favorite stuff. Let's just pull that in a bit. Hold on, there we go. Okay, ladies and gentlemen. So what we'll do is I'll just move this out. We'll do it the last year, okay? Hold on. 23rd. Here we go. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, there is some pure gold in here, which if I was some of these estate agents, I would be grabbing and running because there are some estate agents here whose stats are poor and some that are fantastic. And the devil is in the detail, right? So the important thing here, ladies and gentlemen, is not to look at your new instructions or new instruction market share or your sale agreed or sale agreed percentage. We've already done those. Well, we haven't done the sales, but let's crack on. We only get paid on exchange and completion. So, Ben, you just have a quick look at fall throughs. Well, you know what's coming. I'm just going to do this. The magic thing is this, ladies and gentlemen, is that it's the percentage of properties that leave your books. How many of those do you exchange on? Where the true gold is, okay? And it's these two things here. So, Chancellors, in terms of those two postcodes, 440 properties have left their books. So we're just looking at these four columns here. 225 plus 215 is 240. And therefore, what we're looking at is the percentage of those 240 how many have exchanged. And Chancellors have exchanged on 51.14%. Breccon's on 66%. Scott Fraser at 62, Penny and St Clair 61, Connell's at 55, Chamberlain Evans, well done, at 75, Andrews at 61, Allen and Harris 42, Thomas Merrifield 65, Savills 62, well done Savills on that, that's really good at that price range, Knight Frank at 55. I mean, if I was Brecon and Brecon, I'm going up against Chancellors, let's just have a quick adding up of the Stataroonies on that. What is amazing is this. So 66.27 divided by 51.14 is that Brecon and Brecon have a 29.5% greater chance of achieving a sale than Chancellors. That's powerful stuff, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, it really is.
And then everyone, but again, if I was Chamberlain Evans, I have a nearly 50% chance. Well, whatever 75 over 51, it's just under 50%.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And we'll just have a quick look at everyone else's stats. Okay. So, I mean, if we had to have just a quick look, 55.89% of homes that have left Oxford estate agents' books, you've been paid on. The other 44 have left unsold. Quick look at the fall through rates. Anything grab you there?
all reasonably consistent. I mean, no one's wildly above. What's is that? Savills is at 30%, but everybody else is at average or below average.
Good stuff. So the average is 22.4%. Let's look at price changes. Chancellors, look, 7 in 10 houses. So again, we'll be looking at their overvaluing stats in a second. Those are, 41% of properties get reduced. Chances up at 69. That could have something to do with the fact that their exchange ratios are lower. Because do remember, ladies and gentlemen, this is a big stat. If a property sells within 25 days, which would you agree means that it's keenly priced, then
Yep.
your chances of getting that sale agreed through to completion is 94%. If a property takes more than 100 days to achieve a sale, your chances of getting that sale through are 56%, i.e. it has a 44% chance of falling through. So if you're overvaluing and then having to reduce your price, you will sell less because the overpriced ones won't sell. And when you do reduce them, and if you do sell them, your chance of actually getting it through are much lower as well. Anything before we?
No, I mean, when you provide the raw numbers or the actual stats, it's shocking, but it should also be really obvious. Of course, the quicker you do it, we used to talk, you want a sale to be like cards. A quick hand's a good hand. How quickly can you get it through? Every day it's in your pipeline. The risk of an economic change, a new war, a change in mortgage rates, all these things present themselves. You could be doing the best work of your life, but just not moving fast enough, and you could be losing deals. The urgency piece is so important. And there's a line that I use for Alice, who's our sales progressor, been with me for 10 years, 11 years, in fact. She always tells me off when I say 10 years. And I say she's the perfect blend of a pain in the arse and a great customer service operator. So what I mean by that is people love her at point of exchange completion. But up until that point, she's a dog of a bone. She's a nightmare. She's just always on my case. Have I done it? Have I done it? Have I done it? The more of that stuff you do, we've all been there where we lose a deal on the final day. And if we'd have just moved a little bit faster, and people think that's not our job. For me, that is at least a third of what we're employed to do: chase and hound and get the deal through for our client. It's obvious, but I think we've been involved with change. We're involved in one right now. At some point, I'll create a piece of social media content around it because it's such an astonishing story. But I think everyone we've been involved with in this chain has lied to us. Everyone. New properties are appearing at the bottom of the chain a day before exchange. Things have been done. Things haven't been done. Agents in the middle of the chain completely appear to not care about getting things done in a timely manner. It's astonishing what's happening out there. If you're a great agent, this is a really good way to, I think, separate yourself from the pack, that you care about the sales progression piece, because it's the peace of mind.
Agreed. Right, let's move on. Okay, so immediately, right, so here we go. We suspected, and again, this is nothing against chancellors. I do love them to bits, but we suspected that chancellors were overvaluing, and the reason we thought that was that their price reductions were at 69, but it's hitting them big time on their bottom line with their exchange ratio. So what's happening here is 20EA have looked at all of the listings, and they will have an AVM or automated valuation model figure on all of those listings. Okay, a bit like a Valpal figure. Others are available, and seen what you're putting it on the market for versus what they think it's worth. Now, the model itself is almost irrelevant because it's the same model being applied to all the listings. So immediately, that's telling me is that the two agents which are overvaluing are chancellors with an average overvalue of 2.9%, and Allen and Harris that are overvaluing at 3.2. Again, we are not criticizing in any way, shape, or form. We are just using the data. And I do know for a fact that I believe at least one of those, if not two, have access to this data. The second thing we then look at is, okay, from that original asking price, how much do you on average get knocked off? So chances are overvaluing by 2.99% and therefore getting on average 2.1% less than the original asking price. We then move on and look at Brecken and Brecken. They're overvaluing by 0.84, and they're getting 0.2%. So if you actually, so you could say, well, that's percentages. What does that actually mean, Chris? Well, if everyone put on a £650,000 house, then Chancellors and Brecon would get almost an identical figure. The magic thing here is this, is that because Chancellors are overvaluing, they're getting less properties through because their exchange ratio. So this is where, Brecon will get you the same price, but you're more likely if you look at the percentage difference, you're more likely to get it through, get it moved. That's what, this is where this data comes from. We'll just have a quick look here. There are some goods and some bads in terms of the stats, in terms of overvaluing, and then what you get from the price. So basically, the average Oxford agent who put on a 650 house would get on average 643. And you can look at this graph here and it just shows you the different numbers. Now, there are some here with some massive difference. The lower down you go, the numbers tend to be a bit skewy because the numbers are so small. So do take the smaller ones with a bigger pinch of salt. But the bigger ones in there are some in there that do concern me in terms of the prices they achieve for their vendors. Anything on that before we go to the next one?
It's just using both sets of data is so important because I hadn't, until you just said that right now, we don't use data in this way, but it's a very clever way to use the data. If it appears the same on this screen right now, the two businesses look almost like they're offering at parity, but actually no, massive difference. Just that tweak to how they value.
Good stuff. Right. Okay, let's moving on. Okay, so let's just see how quickly these agents are selling. So Chancellors, and again, as we would expect, because they are overvaluing, they are taking on average 131 days from new instruction to sale agreed. But because we said the stat earlier in the show that if a property takes more than 100 days to sell, it only has a 56% chance of going through. Their overvaluing means that they are getting paid less. I'm not criticizing, just giving you the facts. Okay, let's look at number one was, as I said, Chancellors. Number two was Brecon, and they are taking, there you go, 55 days to find a buyer. And number three was Scott Fraser. Where are you, Scott Fraser? You're taking 72 days. And Penny Sinclair, you're taking 51 days. The pink line is how long you take your sales conveyancing. Now, again, I suspect with Chamberlain Evans, they're probably instructing their solicitors a little bit later than the other agents because their blue line is bigger. Look at the total. You can see that Chamberlain Evans from new instruction through to completion are going to get you moved quicker. There you go. Let's just have a quick look. New instruction to completion, 159 days, and with Chancellors 223. Into that interesting. So the average in Oxford is 80%. The average sale agreed to completion is 116 days. Let's just have a quick look at what it was last year. 74 and 118. So not much difference. It's just taking a little bit longer to sell a house, an extra 6 days, and the sales progression has gone from 118 to 116. So it's taking 2 days on average quicker to get a sale through, which is good news. Let's move on to, is there anything on there that you wanted to talk about, or should we go to lettings?
No, let's do lettings. Sounds good.
Okay. So, again, we are in a student city, so we're going to see some spikes, but we'll just have a quick look at this. Okay. So the average rent in we'll just move that. Hold on. Okay, so the average rent in Oxford was 1,619 in 2019. Let's have a quick look at what it was last year. Hold on. $2,046. Okay. Let's just have a quick look at market share. Now, again, we don't know what stock levels are, but what we do know is this, is if you've got more stock, you've got more relets. Again, we all knew Oxford was a university city, but we can tell that by just look at the October and November lumps. So most of that is going to be student lets. Again, let's just have a quick look at see how their markets go. So we'll just, hold on, just screw that up. Let's look at finders keepers. Again, you'll tend to find most of these are going to be pretty static. Open rent. That's interesting.
Mm.
UK, the average open rent market share was around 4 or 5% in 2019. At the moment, it's knocking on the door of 20. So that's screaming at me, Ben, that open rent have not taken a hold in Oxford as much as they have around the UK.
No.
Okay. College and county. There you go. I bet you those, there you go. Those are university spikes. Okay. Let's go and look at Martin and Co. Which is North Oxford property sales. Again, they look more of a student let. Mainly Breckons. Are they student lets? No, not so much. Okay. Premier. We'll just have a quick look at these. Penny and Sinclair, Hutton Parker. Again, you're not going to see anything seismically different there. What I would say to you, ladies and gentlemen, is this: if you are an Oxford estate agent and you want to know how to use data to get your message across in a great way to attract landlords and vendors, I do offer a service. I can only work for one agent in Oxford on how to use property data to attract landlords and vendors to you. If anyone is interested in wanting to talk to me about those services, feel free to send me a message on social media, or send me a message on 07950 147 572. But only ring me if you are interested in growing your market share, both for lettings and sales. It's a service I can provide for any agent in Oxford, but I can only work for one. But if you're happy with your stock levels, both resi sales and lettings, totally ignore me, but one of you will ring me and I can help you grow your lettings business. Ben, anything on this or that you want to talk about before we go?
No, it is interesting to see open rent not dominating like they do in so many other markets. And I wonder if that's about the quality of agent that operates in Oxford.
Again, I wouldn't know, but it could be, or the type of landlord who is in that. Who knows?
Yeah, it would be interesting to know. Maybe get a market leader from Oxford on the sofa, do a bit of a deep dive, see what's going on.
Indeed. Well, that's the end of the show. Final thoughts for you, mate.
I think it's an exciting end to the year ahead. It's been interesting. It's been challenging. There have been lots of things for us to deal with, but so much more positive than last year. And I'm really genuinely excited about 2025. I think it'll be a great year, but not to get ahead of ourselves. Let's finish the year on a high, everyone.
Well, thank you for your time, Ben. Been absolutely exceptional this year. I just want to say on a personal level, thank you. And if you do want to talk to Ben, he'll always give his time freely. He's a fantastic bloke. I might see you at the EA Masters, might not. I might see some of you at the EA Masters myself. I look forward to seeing you there if I do, all being well. But Ben, thank you for your time today. But more importantly, thank you for watching. And if you've got any questions, send me a DM or send me a comment on YouTube or on the podcast. Thanks for your time today, and we'll leave it at that. Thank you.